we're now coming back to Nairobi, landing in Nairobi, to speak with a team that is doing something quite extraordinary. The team is Sound of Nairobi, and what they've done is they've built an archive of free-to-access sounds of, you guessed it, sounds of the city of Nairobi. Now, if you have had this experience, and I'm sure you have as a podcaster, of going through the hassle of finding sounds to fit into your podcast, in designing your podcast to be engaging so that your audiences can listen from start to finish. And we know that some of these sound archives can be quite inaccessible, but they're also quite a plethora of open access archives. But how many of these actually do represent the sound of Africa, the sound of your city? So here we're very excited to hear from the team joining us live, who have gone through the experience of recording original sounds from different facets of life in Nairobi and making them accessible online for you, podcasters and audio makers, to enjoy and experiment and play with. Welcome, Team Sound of Nairobi. Welcome, Raphael.
Hope everybody can hear me properly. In case I'm not clear.
Raphael and Brian are joining us from Nairobi.
Am I clear? Yes, I think I am. I think I'll.
Welcome to Africa Podcast Day.
Hey, can you guys hear me? Brian, where?
Yes.
Cool. Thank you for the nice intro, and I think the natural place to begin is by introducing ourselves and everything that we do. But you already, I think, have an idea. But the important thing to note is we may not be podcasters per se, but podcasting is one of the channels that we use to put out what we do. But I think it's more important to look at Sound of Nairobi as not just a maker of content, but a resource for other content makers out there. And I think that has already been said. Now, I'd like to take us through our website, which is the main place of interaction with the project. And the website is soundofnairobi.net. If you can access it on your browser, I'd like to share the screen, Tevin, if possible. If I remember the drill. But after that, we'll have my colleague Brian talk to us about what he does to maintain the archive behind the scenes. And then we'll have our other colleague, Kamongi, talk about different ways in which we've used the archive creatively in the past, and probably have a discussion about how other people would like to use it and so on. And finally, I will talk to us about a project that we are launching in a few months' time that we are currently in the process of building, and maybe some of you would like to be involved in. So without too much more, let's go to soundofnairobi.net. And I hope I get this right. Screen share. So if we are on the same page, we should be on soundofnairobi.net, and we start this. You should be looking at our landing page, just to confirm. Yeah, and so Sound of Nairobi is an open access archive of the sounds of the city, like you've heard. And we are exploring sound as a material that can be archived for study, as a source of information that can tell the story of our city, our history in the past, present, future. And most importantly for us today, it's a resource for artists, recordists, anyone who wants to use sound either for learning or for creative purposes. Um, soundofnairobi.net, like I said, is where you get to know everything we do, but the most important part of the site is the archive. I hope you can see it's the first item in our menu, and I'll open it and take us to the place where the sounds that we record are located and kept. I'd like to say, like every year, and we've been doing this since 2019, um, we organize these events where we get about 18, 20 people from different parts of the city, and we arm them with field recorders, something field recorders, something like this, which is also what I'm using to speak to us today. And the guys go around in their different parts of the city, just recording what's going on and etc. And after all the recordings are brought back in, we sort them out. Like you have to go through a lot of stuff before you decide. Okay, fine, this is good quality. Um, we don't usually make like quality judgments. This is a good recording to have. This is not a good recording to have, apart from judgments about technical quality, because um, the material in the archive has got to be representative of as many different perspectives as possible. And yeah, I guess I'm making a comment about how we curate, how we edit, and we try to let it be as representative as possible. So it's not the Sound of Nairobi archive is not representing the team of Sound of Nairobi. It's representing the sounds of different Nairobians, and we'd like to keep that as honest as we can. If we look at the site, and you can do this in your time, it's currently about 2 3 years worth of recordings of all sorts of stuff. I'll play anything randomly just to give us an idea. And what's in front of me right now is Sound 200 recorded in June, on 2nd of June last year, part one, in Langata, in Nairobi. Sorry, sometimes I'm assuming I'm talking to Nairobi as I realize there's people from all over the world. So this is just a recording from a particular neighborhood in Nairobi, and I'll just play it, and then guys get the idea. And here we go.
Sound of Nairobi!
Ragza, nitakubuildia system ya interactive interactive vibes.
I just chose the most random file.
Oh, I did. I saw a phone ringing when you had gone away. It was your mom, eh? It's your mom too.
Yeah, not there now, but as we're talking
No, no one has seen you on phone. Like,
yes, you were on here.
Yes.
So that guy just flashed me. Just busy.
Let's take 3 random recordings, and I swear that was just random, but they just happened to be talking about God knows what. But Sound 205, Landis Road, different side of the city. Finally, one more. Like if I was to demonstrate this side, it will take forever, but this is an invitation for you to explore. And I'm looking for. That's a riding on matatu, Nairobi public transport, and etc. etc. One thing that may be a little bit confusing about me playing those files is that where I am right now, I'm in Westlands, Nairobi, and I'm picking up the sounds of the place around me. So you're probably hearing a lot of what's going on in the building and so on. But that's kind of what the sound of Nairobi is, recording all this, any every day, the mundane, the usual um, day-to-day life. It's like like field recording is like uh, the new photography. Like you know how everyone captures stuff on their phones. I think we are in a place now where audio becomes a new like frontier or a new space for people to explore, and I'm hoping we get to a place where we treat audio field recordings the same way we treat photography. Like anyone can do it from your phone, from wherever. Just building this library of individual, subjective, and collective experience for what it's worth, and feeding the network of creative work and so on. Yeah, I I think before I continue, I'd like to tell people that just hold on a second, need to check something. That Sound in Nairobi, one of the things that we also want to do, but haven't quite got off doing, is our own podcast. Um, and over here, I hope I'm sharing the right screen. Okay, just hold on a second. Share. Chrome tab. And this. Good. Now, I was talking about podcasting, like our experience in podcasting so far is, I hope what you're looking at is this page launching the SON podcast. This was July 30th last year, where we launched our podcast with this one episode, and so far just that one episode. However, coming to the theme of today and this whole event about podcasting is freedom. Um, from our own perspective, we like to explore the freedom of experimentation that comes with podcasting, because like the work that we do or the work that we'd like to present really has no space, no way format. There is no way you have a radio, an FM radio station, at least not in Nairobi, playing a simple soundscape or like experimental compositions using found sound or so on and so forth. Um, Podcasting is the one place that gives us this broad field to play with, where we can introduce or experiment with different forms that cannot easily be put out in normal media. or even in normal platforms. Like it's not just a digital analog thing, but even on things like social media and so on, there's still restrictions in how long or how short or da 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 da. I mean, we all know what we face in every other space, and podcasting remains the one place that feels like the wild, wild west or a frontier of um, storytelling or information sharing and so on. So, like, as much as we've not done a lot with our own podcast, we look forward to using the podcast space to explore in total freedom the full range of possibilities um, for people doing what we're doing. Also, like to mention that usage of our archive is free completely. There's no conditions. We use our Creative Commons license for people contributing their recordings and using our recordings. And another way of exploring the theme of freedom is, guys, it's there for you to contribute to, and it's there for you to benefit from. And I think that's enough of an introduction to SON. Um, and now I'd like to hand to my colleague Brian. Brian's work in SON is all the back end stuff that makes it possible to not just bring the website and its functions to the public, but also the maintenance of the archive and our data storage and management and so on. He's a resident Dolphin Geek Egghead, and he will now speak about what he does. And thank you for being with us so far. Cheers.
Hello, Africa Podcast Day. Such a great event. So many amazing learning opportunities here. Um, I'm gonna share a few details about how we work on the archiving itself. Um, the, the service we started this service in 2019 and have been updating it continuously since then. Um, there is there is a set of tools here. Um, we update this site every few months. What that means for us is uh, maintaining a community of archivists and recordists who want to participate. So for each time we have a recording phase, we'll reach out to people and have them participate and have them sign up to make these recordings and update data with update the recordings themselves with information about what happened in the recording that they made. So at the moment, we have from our last phase, which was in from July last year. So we have currently there are three projects that have been going on continuously. So it's called sounds like a pandemic. And version 3 is what's coming up next. Um, the site itself has a few updates coming. One of them is to the map area to make it easier to see recordings beyond the first 50. Uh, so the idea is to be able to look at multiple pages of work and multiple recordings. We'll share these data. So the the site is the usage of the site is primarily for thinking as well. Just we need to be able to enable people to listen to and think about how the city changes over a very long time period. and you can think of it as a way to see what the city sounded like once everything has changed. Everything that is changing, anything that does change in cities, never really goes recorded anywhere, unless we write about it or unless we take photos of it. But we do never actually get to hear what it sounded like uh, back in the day. So I think this is one good place for that. Um, so and there's more other places. So they can be used for samples for podcasts, like Raf mentioned before. Can be used as a data resource for data scientists. The value of this is to be able to see uh, the number of things that that can be counted or detected in the system like that. So in the sound recordings themselves. For digital art as well, it's still possible to use AI particularly to to create art from raw data, and that's usually down. That feels like a good way to attempt to use it. So currently, it gets about 4,000 views a month, with about 200, 300 views a day. The most well represented countries are uh, Kenya, USA, France, Germany, Singapore, Australia. So people do find the site through multiple places, each reading the blog or listening to each recording or downloading the recordings themselves in bulk. So next I'll talk about the process that we use. Um, we have multiple phases of uh, Soundworks, and this is a kind of a rough timeline that helps with that might takes up to a whole year's worth of work that being when working on a single project. This all spans roughly a year. So we can take phase to have a sound work, uh, spend some time verifying, backing up files, which is shared among the core team. Each recording is cleaned up and uh, it's cleaned up and made easy to listen to. So in some situations, a recording can be very difficult to listen to because maybe the recorder or microphone itself has its volume set too high. So we fix that a little bit in order to make it easier to hear. We upload to the public archive and then we exhibit it. Um, then the so the service here is on archive.soundonairobi.net. Um, each of these recordings are uh, they are tagged with different kinds of data, include depending on where it came from, uh, which sounds were listened to, the route that the recordist took to get there, and each of this bit of information is backed up several times. We store a lot of this technology, a lot of this data in multiple places. So at any given point in time, we should be able to restore it whenever if something happens to the main site, and to make it easier for for people who want to download the recordings in bulk. Like if you want all of them that we've ever done, we're setting up a torrent service on academic torrents in order for people who want that to be able to get the data directly. Um, all of the data is licensed Creative Commons, which means it's free to access and free to reuse and remix. Uh, so there's really no restrictions at all. All we ask is just credit and we to just discuss what it is that's there. That way we can also highlight the work that's been used and the work that's been done with the recording data itself. I think for me that's all I have. The next speaker here is Kamangi Njue, who will talk about how the services are.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Kamugi Joy. I'm using Raphael's computer. Um, so for SON, we've had a publication that I'm about uh, to read from. It's called Slab. Um, you can find some bits of it on on the website, the blog bit. We've had contribution from some of Nairobi writers. I'm going to read a paragraph or two from Lutigini Majaja's piece called Landimawe. Um, Let me try to share the screen for the PDF. Um, while Washington. Okay. Madimawe is a place in Nairobi which is connected to CBD via a footbridge which has now been renovated. By the time of writing this piece for Lutivini, the changes had it happened. Um, what I hear, what I remember hearing, what I miss hearing, what I want to hear, all of that accumulated sound. In the places where virtual images retire, internet archives, stored prints, dead cell phones, there's a photograph of a fashion model solo strutting on the footbridge, leaning on the handrails, striking a pose. North, south, east, and west facing selfies are continuously generated and shared. Um, the concert during my walks at the Vedas present on both sides of the bridge. They sell boiled maize or groundnuts, sweet and chewy gum. There's the bookseller and the vendor with cut sugarcane on a wheelbarrow. On the other side of the footbridge, you are likely to encounter a musician or two playing an instrument, box guitar, mouth organ, shaker, tambourine or drum, interred in the radio playing choir music. Next to the musicians, bowls of contributions, inside the bowls some coins, maybe a few notes. During the lockdown, there aren't enough passers-by to fill the musicians' bowls. Um, um, and now be reading from Bedroll Peace, from the Sound of Memory, which starts with a quote from Chris Marker. Nothing distinguishes memories from ordinary moments. Only later do they become memories by the scars they leave. Sound, by its very nature, is transitory and its presence in space is ambiguous. I listen to recordings of the city and find myself listening with a sense of beginnedness, an absence of presence, attempting to draw substance from that which is not entirely there, that which haunts a sound, to listen carefully, even fearlessly, then almost becomes a form of cultivation summoning memories, nostalgia, and occasional glimpses of a time to come in its wake. The city, like all places, is imbued with memories of what happened there. Some are visible, but most are hidden behind the wall of time. And those memories are the grid along which we impose meaning to the random facts of the world. Um, from our last project, there's something we did some compositions of the recordings from the archive. Um, we featured some of Nairobi experimental musicians that did sound. Um, for the liner notes, um, this a piece by Kamaru, um, which is um, on Sound of Nairobi Bandcamp.com for this love album release, EP release. For Kamaru liner notes, the title of his piece is called Metal or Metal. Metal is based on an audio buffer and granular concept, where you take audio and route it to another sound, moving through elements of the spectrum to bring out new textures and colors from the sound source using granular synthesis. SOM 00183 and SOM 00187 are the basis of this piece, creating a bed of textures to build on throughout. The composition is a prelude to three more sections that will be developed using the recordings of the archive. Um, Hopefully, let me try to play metal before I invite Raphael. Yeah. I'll now invite Raphael, but I see there's a question from Modon Maigua. or if she's asking if the sounds are royalty free. Um, all the sounds from the archive can be used, can be downloaded for free. You can use them in whatever ways you may want to. Um, yeah, now I invite Raphael. Hi, Brian. It's good to see you.
Yeah, we're in the same room. Um, I think we are about to wrap up. We are basically wrapping up. And a recap of the theme podcasting is freedom. If you listen to what Kamongi was playing, the way like I was reflecting on it is podcasts is the one place where like more risky um, musical work in this context is going to be presented or found. It's a place where like less marketable at first because eventually maybe they become the mainstream or they get into fashion or whatever. But before they get into the mainstream or before they get into um, yeah whatever the space they have to play in our digital age. This is experimental musicians. Podcasts is a place for experimental musicians, experimental artists, and I think that's a legit interpretation of the theme. And yeah, I think we just need to wrap this up finally, but we just needed to talk about one thing that we're doing in the next few weeks. I'd like to share the screen one more time. Just confirm what screen it is. And so, um, beginning April, Son of Nairobi will be recording what we're calling sound pressure levels, which is by that we mean we'll recruit like a team of like 20 or so people to go around the city over 5 months between um, March and August. August, if you don't know, is Kenya's general election. Um, Political temperatures will be all over the place, and the noise will be. It's always a noisy year when it's election time, but we want to try and capture this moment in a similar way to how we tried to capture the initial pandemic moment. So our this cohort of recordists will be going around different areas of the city, trying to um, record um, the conversations that happen around um, this interesting time segment in every in most Kenyans' day, 7 p.m. news. 7 p.m. news and 9 p.m. news. I don't know if it's the same outside of Kenya, but in Kenya, the news is some sort of important thing that, like, if you're in a club or a bar at 7 p.m. or 9 p.m., in most places, many places, they will even turn down the music just so that they can play the news. And it seems to be a big deal to many people. And we decided to that this might be a use what like something we can use to gauge the vibe of the city during this period. At the same time, running into issues of recording private conversations, blah blah blah, ethical da 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 da's about privacy and etc. Um, sounded like an issue, but if you're in a public place, a restaurant or whatever, um, your conversation is not the only. So we feel like it's legitimate to just turn on your microphone and take in the whole deal of the situation. And later we shall see if we learn what we learn out of it. But we'll keep guys updated about it. The name of the project is Sound Pressure Levels, and you can keep up with it and everything we're doing on soundofnairobi.net. I don't want our segment to be self-promotion. I think we've spoken enough about what we're doing, and let me just say thank you very much for giving us this opportunity, because yeah, I don't think there is anyone else listening to other voices. Africa Podcast Festival is, I hope it leads to, I don't know, it's appreciated. And thank you so much. I don't know, you guys speak to us now. If anyone has questions. Like, I'm so done talking. No words left. Okay, sorry guys, just speak. Okay, I think I shall turn the mic up and we shall listen to the sounds of Westlands until the moderators take us to the next segment. I guess this is still Sound of Nairobi. Thank you very much. And bye. Yeah, done. No, we're still on. Yeah. Lillian, yes, appreciate your question. And for those who don't know what the question is, Lillian asks, I'll just quote verbatim. While you've touched on the issue of ethics when recording private conversations in public places or spaces, sorry, I'd like to urge you to dig deeper on that because what you're doing can easily be misconstrued as surveillance. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why we use Creative Commons, because we put it out there, so that there's nothing that the Sound of Nairobi records and archives that's not publicly available. And that helps with accountability and openness. Plus, really, like, we're not working for any whatever, man. But I know it's a concern, it's legit, and we'll obviously be dealing with more of those as we go on. But that's why it's an open system. Contribute, take out of it, and yes, ask be free to ask any questions you want, but it's always gonna be free and open to the whole world to see what we are receiving and what's out there, what we are recording and what we put out there. Yeah. Thank you, Jacinta. Jacinta says many people are saying good things, and I'm saying thank you. I don't know. Royalty free, or maybe let me clarify Creative Commons, and we have the specific Creative Commons license because there's different ones. The info will be on the page, but yeah, Creative Commons. I think it's attribution or it's free use, free share, but Creative Commons basically just bottom line, you're free to contribute, you're free to take anything out of Sound of Nairobi. Just remember to give credit where the opportunity is, but go ahead. That's for Mudhoni Waigwa. For Paulo, he says perhaps you could muffle the sounds of the conversations, making it harder to copy and understand the voice of people you're talking in the streets. What my answer to that is field recording, it's the decision is up to the recorder to decide what they feel is worth recording, and that we cannot really police. But in that same spirit, you'll have someone recording um, a quiet walk in the park, and you'll have someone else recording a noisy evening in the bar. We really can't give guidelines about what to record. The most guideline we give is quality of recording. High resolution, not more than so many minutes. 10 minutes is our limit. High resolution, try and give us WAV files, 44.1 or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But that's the extent of our guideline. We cannot tell people what to decide is important for recording or not. And conversations, in fact, are not the most important part of SON recording. If people give us conversations, fair enough, but let people decide what is worth their recording while. Yep. Paolo. Lily Jerome asks, another idea in addition to Paolo's could be to explore how to get consent from the contributors. The same way when Njenga Zoom call has been recorded, you're told that it's been recorded. And so, how you feel about that? Funny thing is, I don't personally, and with a project like this, I guess that's why with freedom comes responsibility. Maybe that should be the theme of our next African podcast festival. Podcasting is responsibility, maybe.